Now, hey everyone, it's Charlene Williams. I am a real estate broker from Real Estate Homeward, and today I have with me Marco, who is also a broker at Real Estate Homeward. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, Marco?
Yes, my name is Marco Sobrevinas, and I'm, as Charlene mentioned, in the same brokerage, and I'm also a broker working in the Greater Toronto area.
Right. So we're both in the GTA, and I do a lot of work in Durham. I do a lot of work in PO region and as well the GTA. So Marco, I know that you're all over like
Mhm.
Hamilton, that sort of thing. Can you give us a little bit of an overview of what you think is going on in the market?
Sure. I mean, right now, August, typically it's quiet. And
Mhm.
that's not so much because of economic factors, but for the obvious reason, most people are on vacation, right? So August is almost always very, very quiet. However,
Right.
I think what is happening because of the two Bank of Canada rate drops. I think what's happening behind the scenes, and I've spoken to a few mortgage agents about this, is the number of buyers is starting to build up, right? They've told me that they've had a spike in approving buyers who've been holding back for the last year or two. Now that obviously the 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 interest rates dropping. And I
Right.
think that's going to be interesting, Charlene. I think after Labor Day, obviously, once kids are back at school, everybody's back from vacation. I think it's going to be a significantly different market. And the last thing I'll say before I hand it back to you is a lot of people, think, oh, the market value is not good and everything's slow. Well, the truth is, since January and February of this year, across the GTA, what people haven't noticed is that condos have gone up an average of almost $50,000, and freehold has gone up almost $130,000 in average sale price. So
Mhm.
that's been happening in the background, and I've noticed nobody, other agents haven't really been talking about that, and I haven't seen it in the broadcast or social media.
Right, right. I think a lot of people are just focused on interest rate, interest rate, interest rate. And it's funny how I've been in real estate for 15 years and I haven't really seen this kind of market where house prices have been so much more affordable, even with the price increase.
Right.
And a lot of people are just, well, I know sellers they're thinking, well, I'm not going to get the same price for my house this year as I may have had in 2022.
Right.
But let's look at when you purchase the home.
Hmm.
How much are you making on that purchase? And I think a lot of people are losing sight of that. Oh, they want a million plus for their house, but they bought it, I don't know, when it was 400,000. You've already made your money.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think your point right there is sometimes um, sellers lose that perspective. They've been there um, 10, 15, 20 years, even 5 years. They've made a significant, as in six figures, particularly for freehold. And I
Right.
also want to go back to your point about um, the price of real estate right now. Yes, it the prices have gone up, as I mentioned. Those stats are earlier since the bottom of the market, which was last Christmas, last
Mhm.
January. But it's still roughly freehold. I believe I looked this up. I believe it's about $300,000 less than 2022, just before the interest rate started going up. So for buyers, it's a good value. For
Mhm.
sellers, the market's coming back up. And as you mentioned, if they've owned it for more than 5, 10 years, they've made a significant amount of money in.
That's absolutely correct. So, what I was doing was I was going out on showings with buyers, and I was downtown on Friday, and there's a lot of, um, I'm going to say row houses, kind of like the traditional row house
Yeah, I
that
can
we
tell
were
you.
looking at. Yeah. So, within about 900,000 to 1.2 million, depending on the state of the property. But there's a lot out there for a buyer if you don't want to spend $1 million. And we all know that with $1 million purchase of a home in Ontario, you have to put 20% down,
Yeah, yeah. There's
right?
no question there's no high ratio mortgage allowed. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
So, were you out, let's say, this past week with buyers? I know you mentioned that you were looking at condos with your buyers.
Yes, I had met a wonderful family, Canadian citizens, but they've been working in Switzerland as academics for quite a while. Anyway, I met them a week and a half ago. We went out, a real whirlwind of condos, um, and yeah, we came to a deal. We bought one just about 5 days ago, and what's
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you. What's interesting about that for this family is everything we looked at, Charlene, was minimum on the market 2 weeks, right? So it's been sitting there. Condos, as we know, are still quite quiet, even though the price, as I mentioned, has gone up on
Mhm.
average, close to 50,000. It's still a quiet market. So for people who want to buy a condo, now is a great time. So everything we saw, it was very, very quiet. When we did offer on the one that we got, we were up against only one other offer, right? Like it was a very and everything was sealed up. From the time we offered to the time we got firm was like a day and a half. So
Right.
I would say for buyers, it's been a relatively stress-free time period right now. I mean, there's always a lot of stress buying, always, of
Hmm.
course. And
Yeah.
you and I are very empathetic with our buyers, but it's a lot less crazy now than it's been. And I haven't been working real estate as long as you have, just short of 10 years. But this is the calmest time period I've ever seen for buyers. That's for sure.
Yeah, not only is it less stressful for buyers, it's less stressful for you as a buyer agent as
Yeah,
well.
well, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I always carry the stress of my buyers with me. And I mean, a lot of people don't think that realtors are, emotional at all, but I guess I'm one of those. So yeah, it's been really, really less stressful. So I just did a purchase with a buyer who we were in Durham, Whitby, and you know, an unheard of amount in the recent years for a detached linked property, and it's only linked by the garage, right? Um, 3 bedrooms, beautiful detached property for 780.
Hmm.
And that, even in Durham, is unheard of. And we were lucky. We negotiated well, and I think well, not think, I know my buyers are very happy with that. And the sellers were okay with it as well. It goes to another family and they can move up and out. So yeah, they're pretty lucky. But I was very, very shocked about that.
And Charlene, in your situation, when you bought, were you up against, so that's freehold versus
Mhm.
my condo situation, which is obviously condo. Um, and I was just wondering, were you in a multiple offer situation, or you were the only
We were the only offer. It
perfect?
had not, also, it had not been on the market for a long time. So it was, I think, within 2 weeks of being on the market.
Right, right, yeah.
Right? But I guess the family wanted to, they were ready to go,
Yeah,
and I think a lot of people are in that position. But like I said, it was for me, the kitchen and the I know it doesn't matter for me, but the kitchen and the deck, it was multiple level decks. Those were the two areas that really got me, not a non-traditional kitchen. But my buyers were very happy with 780 for a detached home.
yeah, absolutely. And I think, you had mentioned Peel, Durham. I'll also mention York and Halton. I
Hmm.
think all of those areas that are just outside Toronto, um, uh, something that's been happening already for many years and is going to continue happening is, of course, with GO trains. It's
Right.
just keeps getting better and better over the years and over the decades. So um, I think it makes those areas outside of city of Toronto more and more viable. And it's all of that is just all that infrastructure just keeps improving. So I think that's a very good value to buy in places like Durham and York and Peel and Halton. And what's interesting, speaking of transit, you know, if the Eglinton LRT ever opens,
Ever.
ever, and I'm hopeful it will, but the condo that my buyers purchased last week happens to be 3 blocks north of one of the Eglinton LRT stations. So we should point out that whenever something major like a train or subway station opens, there's generally a spike. I've noticed there's generally a spike in residential value. If you own
Mhm.
something within, let's say, 1 to 1.2 kilometers of a major station opening, I think you could realistically expect an additional 3 to 5% bump upwards in your market value. So that's not nothing. That's with prices in the GTA. That's a significant additional plus.
Of course it is, especially with it. Well, as we said, if the Eglinton trains ever start to run, then yeah, it would be huge because even in that area now, it's quite a big hub for people going east-west, especially during rush hour. So that it makes a significant difference.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. I think one of the major U.S. cities, I can't remember Boston or maybe Chicago. I think it was Boston, but uh, um, they had a similar issue where it took years and years to get the subway or whatever rail system. But when it was up, um, it actually ended up working really, really well. So right now, yeah, it's been very, very painful, especially for a lot of the businesses along Eglinton. But hopefully we're almost there.
Yeah. I think it was Boston actually. I remember this story, reading about it and talking with my peer group about it. But yeah. So do you have anything else you want to add, Marco? Like,
No, I think that's everything I really wanted to talk with you about the market now, and yeah, definitely. I think the last thing I'll say is, yeah, I think it's going to become much busier after Labor Day,
so
given
the fall market.
yeah, fall market, given what's been happening behind the scenes with our colleagues in the mortgage side.
Right. And the interest rate announcement is September 4th. So we'll all be
Yeah,
glued to our computers waiting for that announcement.
yeah.
Do you think a 0.25 or a 0.50?
I think given that we have a very conservative banking system and Bank of Canada, I'm going to say 0.25.
Okay.
Um, but I think there's almost no chance they are not going to drop again. Um,
Right.
I think they're I think they're going to drop again for sure. So, and I'm
Okay.